So we have waited 2 minutes for the question answer sessions. So the question answer session has come to the end, and we will now begin to the photo sessions. Please, for the participants to open your camera as we want to take the photo with our beloved speakers, Miss Putih Medina and Miss Tiga Morris. Please open your camera, guys. And from the documentation division, Miss Sheila Mins, are you here? Hello, Miss Ines, are you here?
Hello.
Okay. Can you please open your video and give us the countdown for the photo session?
I'm sorry I cannot open my video because of my camera is kind of broke. Can I just conduct you guys to take a picture?
Okay, please
Okay.
begin the countdown.
Okay, yeah. Wait a minute. Everyone, I think we only got 2 slides. Can we wait or just take the picture?
Let's just begin the countdown.
Okay. Okay, be ready everyone. 3, 2, 1, cheese. Okay, the next slide. Pose everyone, smile. 3, 2, 1, cheers. Cute. Okay, the third slide. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, pose. 3, 2, 1. All good. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so it already comes to an end. Thank you very much, both of our beloved speakers, Tiga Morris and Putih Medina Indasari. Okay, thank you. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so for now, we will begin to the break session for. Okay, so wait a minute. Thank you very much for the splendid Q&A sessions with our speaker from now. Now we will have a quick break before jumping into the second webinar session, and we will back at 16:45 Western Indonesian time, GMT +7. Before we take our break, on behalf of the Bali International Student Festival 2022 Committee, we would like to express our greatest gratitude for our greatest sponsor from the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen, and Tourism Academy. For the edit team, you can please open the video for the sponsors. As we are taking the break right now.
Hola, yo soy Luis from Mexico. I'm a 4-year student in my last year of college here. I'm a computer science major. I like to read.
안녕하세요. 저는 소리라고 합니다. 현재 마케팅 커뮤니케이션을 전공을 하고 있고 I'm from South Korea, but I was born and raised in Guatemala. I think it's been already like around 4 years since I've been here.
What impressed me was the 3 of you got 100% right.
My name is Lin Yitong. You can also call me Amanda. Year 3 student major in psychology, and I'm from Shenzhen. I really enjoy the biological psychology. You have to study many neuroscience to understand the human body and also human perception.
The problem is
usually write and program.
You would think like, oh, computer science, you're just in the computer all day, but like surprisingly here I have to do like much more than that. Circuits projects, I have to do programs, but I also have to do heavy intensive math. I have optimization courses, calculus, linear algebra, it's like a bunch of stuff that you don't really expect coming here.
I really learned a lot in this class, like learn how to problem solve, like how to analyze. Based on that, try to come up with short-term and long-term strategies.
After taking 2 classes, I will go for lunch with my friends and take a little break.
I will be honest, I kind of miss the food, but I think I have coped with that because I know how to cook. Something I also learned in college.
공기도 좋고 공기도 좋고 조용합니다.
That's something pretty cool about like I met people from basically almost every continent. ¿Pozole? Ah, la napa.
Tiene mucha fama. Mucha gente dicen que
Understand our differences and find a way for us to live together, study together. This takes time, but of course, you can always overcome it.
I think you can find the scoring of this scale. Males and females assessed more accurately.
It's about waiting and not knowing what you're waiting for. I puked my pukable life here.
Been quite a day, and I'm actually a little bit concerned about our marketing course.
It's a big challenge to come to this university, to China. However, I think if you're living in this world, you have to understand different people, especially China because it's such a growing country.
I was really excited because first like a really good university, nice computer science program, is also like a tech city, right? With a lot of startups, a lot of companies, Huawei, Amazon, a lot of factories, a lot of like new things. Things that I just heard about but like I never saw and I can never like use.
I currently plan to apply for master's degree. Probably will start psychology further. I think psychology is a better way for me to help others and also to understand myself.
And I think I'm really gonna miss them a lot. I believe like we're gonna meet like once, you know, like in the near future. But yeah, I think
Like I don't think I'm the same person I was when I left Mexico. I'm kind of curious of how much have I actually changed.
They used to sing about the birds and the bees.
No matter who we are or where we come from, we all deserve to have a fulfilling career. We deserve to feel confident and inspired day after day. We deserve to know that we have the tools, knowledge, skills, and power to take care of ourselves, our communities, and to build our own futures. At the Tourism Academy, this is what unites us. Through transformative, engaging, and accessible education, we empower. Because you, me, we're all humans, and every single one of us deserves an opportunity to explore, to learn, and to grow. Take a course, build an academy, share your knowledge, or donate today.
Hello guys, I hope you have an amazing break for the last 10 minutes. So we'll begin the second sessions for today with our expert speaker, Nathan Linton. Before that, the second topic of the second discussion is maximizing the youth's potentials for positive community change. There are many ways to make an impact to the positive community change. As the youth, we should know our own potential as the future leader. This may reduce the number of unresponsible people and increasing the quality of our life by bringing up greater solutions to world's problem. For that, we have invited Mr. Nathan Linton to give us presentation about this topic. Before I introduce Mr. Nathan further, hello, Mr. Hello, Ms. Nathan. Hello, Nathan. Can you please give us a hello?
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. Okay, I will introduce Mr. Nathan further. Mr. Nathan is the Hub of Impact in Oaktree, Australia, one of our sponsors for today's event. It is the organization that mainly supports young people in the Asia-Pacific region, including Australia, to champion sustainable development initiatives. Mr. Linton also held the position of the Non-Executive Director of Concern Australia and as the Ambassador for TIR Australia. He graduated from Monash University with a degree of Master of International Development Practice. Building strategies and programs which give people the ability to thrive and impact their communities is at the core of what Mr. Linton do. He develops, implement, and support programs which engage young people, volunteers, and communities with particular experience in the international development and emergency services sectors. Mr. Linton's core skills are in program development, strategic planning, change management, and group facilitation, and have a passion for seeing the lives of people and communities change for the better. Before I welcome our speaker, I would like to let the audience know that there will be a Q&A sessions where participants may ask questions to Mr. Linton. And now, without further ado, please welcome Nathan Linton. You will have 30 minutes to present. The stage is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian. And thank you so much to everyone. I'm incredibly excited to be joining today. Before I even get started, I want to say a huge thank you to the Bali International Student Festival and to the Indonesia Youth Foundation for having me today. It's my honor to have this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to the time that we have together. I'm just going to share my screen, so bear with me while I get that up, and then I will properly get started. Give me 1 second. Brian, could I just get you to confirm if you can see that? Excellent. Thank you. All right. Before I fully get started, I just want to acknowledge that I'm on the land of the Wurundjeri and the Boonwurrung people. While I live in Australia, the Aboriginal people have been on this land for over 60,000 years, and I want to acknowledge their elders, past, present, and emerging, and recognise the impact that colonisation has had on the First Nations people of Australia. And I also want to pay my respects to any First Nations people that might be here today. So a little bit about myself. Brian did a fantastic job at giving a bit of a background. So I'll extend on that a little bit to talk a bit about my experience. And while I'll be talking today on maximising young people's potential for positive community change. So I'm currently the head of impact at Oaktree, but before I did that, I graduated from high school and then I went to university and I studied a Bachelor of Arts at Monash University and a Masters of International Development Practice. I always wanted to try and make the world a better place and work with other young people to do that. And that was one of the best ways that I could through my studies. When I graduated from university, I worked with the youth programs team at the Country Fire Authority. The Country Fire Authority is a volunteer-based emergency services organisation, and it includes about 60,000 volunteers across regional Victoria, and I got to work on the Junior Development Program with over 1,500 young people across the state of Victoria. I'm also on the board of an organisation called Concern Australia, which is a youth services organisation working with vulnerable people in the areas of housing, homelessness, employment, and youth justice. We work with a number of at-risk young people who are either in prison or the state care system and try to give them an opportunity for a better future. But my current role, which is incredibly exciting, is that I get to work at Oaktree, which is Australia's largest youth-led international aid and development organisation. Oaktree has over 200,000 supporters across Australia. Our vision is a world where every young person has an equitable chance to reach their potential, and our purpose is to support young people to shape a better world. We do this through a number of ways. We do this firstly through our Youth Solidarity Fund, which is a program that supports youth-led organisations across the Asia-Pacific region by giving them funding and support to lead change in their communities. We are also leading a global campaign for youth rights to be enshrined in international law, which we are about to launch. And we are also conducting research into the impact of COVID-19 on young people throughout the Asia-Pacific region, which we're getting ready to launch within the next 2 months. At Oaktree, we believe that young people are capable of leading, demanding, and creating a more sustainable and just world. The inclusion of youth perspectives is not merely an optional undertaking, it is a prerequisite for inclusive, sustainable, and effective development. So I want to start by asking the question, why young people? So the world currently has the largest generation of young people in history. 50% of the world's young people live in 50% of the world's population is under the age of 30, and 90% of young people live in low to middle income countries in the global south. Today's young people are living in a world with significantly different challenges to those faced by their elders. Young people are encountering climate-induced natural disasters, increased health, food, social, and economic insecurity, and a global pandemic, all within their formative years. Today's young people are also the most connected, have the greatest access to technology, and are the most educated generation in history. Above all, young people are the largest stakeholders in a sustainable future. Whilst many may see the growing youth demographic and their circumstances as a major challenge, I see this as a defining moment for change in the global push for sustainable development and positive change. And if others aren't willing to step up and lead with the courage that our current situation demands, then we as young people must stand up and lead in their place. More and more, young people are organising and taking action to make positive change in our communities and across the world happen. The clearest example of this is the School Strike for Climate. Shocked by the lack of action on climate change, one schoolgirl in Sweden started a worldwide youth-led movement that is impossible to ignore. Young people are making their voices heard and taking action into their own hands, and it's encouraging adults to take notice and act. This is an exciting time to be a young person. Young people are putting their hands up to drive change. Youth-led civil society around the world is growing, and organisations like Oaktree and the Indonesia Youth Foundation are but two examples of many. The Youth Collective, which is supported by Restless Development, has over 500 youth-led groups alone. The UN has recently introduced the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, and the Sustainable Development Solutions Network has a growing number of youth chapters throughout the world. There has never been a better time for youth-led change. There are, however, significant barriers to this change. Young people are underrepresented in the world's highest decision-making bodies. Despite 50% of the population being under 30 years old, only 2.6% of parliamentarians are under 30. Ageist norms often exclude young people from decision-making. Young people are often told to wait their turn, or that their perceived lack of experience excludes them from making valuable contributions. Despite being a vulnerable and underrepresented demographic group, young people have no protections under international law, with youth from minority ethnic groups, low socioeconomic statuses, queer communities, and those with a disability facing increased barriers and levels of discrimination. With these challenges in mind, I've developed 4 key steps that we can take to maximize the potential for young people to drive positive change. So what are these 4 key steps? The first one is to build power through partnerships. We are always stronger when we act together. And whilst money may be the easiest way to build power, acting in numbers is a key way to build power and influence others. I encourage you to focus on building partnerships with key 3 groups. The first one is other young people and youth-led organisations. This is one of the easiest places to get support. Young people want to support young people, and working together in a coordinated way is a great way to do this. It may be through partnering on a project or agreeing to speak at a conference, much like tonight, or it could be making a joint statement. Some great places to connect with other youth-led organisations are through the Youth Collective with Restless Development, which is on that QR code there on the left, which will take you through to their website and link you up with over 500 youth-led organisations throughout the world. I'll go back to this slide later on. Another one is through the Youth Solidarity Fund, which Oaktree runs for organisations across the Asia Pacific region. The second area to focus partnerships is with governments and other community groups. Whilst partnerships with government in some places is challenging and in some cases not recommended, governments often have the ability to make large changes in many communities. Engage with your officials, elected or otherwise, and let them know of the areas young people care about. For those of us in democracies, with young people making up more of the population, use this to your advantage to advocate the issues that are important to young people. In some places, governments may be able to provide resources to back your change. Also look to other influential groups in your community who can make change happen. This may be your local mosque, church, synagogue, or temple. It could be a local sporting group or an NGO. Seek to work together with as many people as possible, particularly with those with established links in the community. And the last group to focus partnership building is with intergenerational allies. It can be easy to see older generations as against younger people. However, this is often not true. Try to find older people who are sympathetic to issues young people care about. They can often be the most helpful in unlocking opportunities or talking with people that may not initially agree with you. Also seek to be an intergenerational ally to older people. Be vocal about issues facing older people, and they'll return the favour back. The second key step, have a clear strategy and plan. Having a clear goal and working out what you're going to get, having a clear goal and working out how you're going to get there is often overlooked. It's easy to get swept away in a big idea. However, taking the time to properly plan a project or initiative is incredibly important. This will make sure everyone is on the same page and that your time and resources are used most effectively and efficiently. I'm always willing to work with youth-led organisations on strategy development and project planning, so please feel free to contact me after this session to see how we can work together, and I'll put my contact details up at the very end. Oaktree has also developed a guide to organisations on how to best design youth-led projects, and you can get that on the QR code there on the right. And this is also available on Oaktree's website. The third area, shift resources to where it matters most. Many of us in the social impact space will know there are never enough resources available to make the change we want to see happen. This includes time, people, and money. And because of this, it's important to make sure our resources are targeted to where the need is and where the impact will be the greatest. I have a particular note for donor organisations, particularly those based in high-income countries in the global north, like myself in Australia. It's vital that you understand the impact of grant and reporting processes on youth-led organisations. Youth-led organisations are often underfunded and have less experience than established organisations. Reporting and grant applications take up a huge amount of time and resources for these organisations. Focus on what is essential, provide a high degree of flexibility, and enter into arrangements based on trust. This is the model that Oaktree has adopted through the Youth Solidarity Fund, and I'm happy to meet with you afterwards to share Oaktree's experience on simplifying our grants and reporting to support youth-led change. And the very last one, leave no one behind. Across the world, inequality is increasing, and it's not just between countries, it's also within them. The pandemic has only served to increase this disparity. Sustainable Development Goal number 10 calls for reduced inequalities as a key way to bring about sustainable development. Effective change is inclusive change. It's about making sure no one is left behind, that we bring everyone along for the journey. We need to pay particular attention to the economic, environmental, and social factors of the work we do to make sure it improves all three of these areas. It's safe to say here that as English speakers, we have access to some of the best information, resources, connections, and networks the world has to offer. It's not to say that we don't face barriers. However, it's important to recognise and reflect on your position and privilege. Ask yourself how we can connect with other people who don't have access to the same economic and social resources that we have, and pay particular attention to how the health of the environment leads to better outcomes for everyone. To draw my initial statements to a close, I want to remind us that it's an exciting time to be a young person. There has never been a larger generation of young people, and the challenges and opportunities we face have never been greater. Young people are becoming more organised and taking collective action at a scale we've never seen before, and this is a great thing. To help overcome those challenges, there are those 4 key steps that we can take to maximise the potential for young people to drive positive community change. The first, build power through partnerships. The second, have a clear strategy and plan. The third, shift resources to where it matters most. And fourth, leave no one behind. This, of course, is only the start of the conversation. There's one of me and there's hundreds of you, and you all come with your experience, your insight, your knowledge, and your energy. My hope is that this will inspire you to drive change, despite the challenges, to make the world a more just and sustainable place for everyone. Now, before I hand over for Q&A, please know that you can contact me through email or LinkedIn, which I've put up on the screen for you. I'd love to hear from you to see if there's any way that we can work together, or if there's a way I can support you or your youth organisation to drive positive change. Now, I'm trying to brush up my Indonesian. Terima kasih, thank you, and merci, everyone. It's been a real pleasure to share these thoughts with you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nathan, for your presentations. So if you guys want to connect and make the positive community change, you can contact Mr. Nathan in this screen right now, from the email or from the Twitter. For now, I would definitely agree with your statement, Mr. Nathan, actually, about the 4 key steps. It's actually a very, very great ways to summarize the things about this community change. And to summarize the presentation, the organizations can be the best way for we, as the youth, to make a positive change. The teamwork within the youth that agree of the fatal problems can make a world a better place. Now, we will open to the question and answer sessions. We will begin with the questions in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. Okay, so there is one for now. Mr. Muhammad Saleh, can you please open your camera and unmute your mic to ask the questions with Mr. Nathan?
Okay, thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
I'm so sorry, sir. I cannot open my camera now because of some number of reason here. So I have a really great question from my thought, which the first I would like to state from our first president, Mr. Sukarno. In one of his speech, he stated bravely that youth power even could shake the world. And then the data that is shown in your presentation, which the 90% of the youth live in the global south of the world. Through this data and the fact, I think the most potential way to hit and set the world in a very great way supposed to be us in the global south, but the reality doesn't even show that. Here B, I'm just super curious about why this is happening, because lately I'm just getting super bored with the statement of the youth now and the leader tomorrow, because like this statement has the dualism meaning, which here in the global south, when we state our voice clearly, we also have the limitation from the people as the government or the people from the upside. And then through this platform, I'm just wondering how we are going to embrace, enhance, and also embody and also enlighten the youth in the global south. Thank you very much.
Well, Mohammed, what a fantastic question. And I really wish I had the easy answer to that.
Thank you.
Okay, let me try and address a few of the points you've made, because you made some brilliant points. The first one I will make is I'm also really tired of that statement that youth or young people are the leaders of tomorrow. While that's true, and we will be the leaders of tomorrow, in so many cases, and what I would assume of everyone here today, you are all leading in your communities in some way. And it's really important that we get the resources and the backing behind young people today, because young people are already stepping up and leading, often in cases where governments or older people have not taken the lead. So I totally agree with you on that. And I think it's up to us to start changing that narrative, firstly, to hope that it catches on for other people, so they recognize we're leading today. The second part of what you said is, how can young people in the global south kind of be heard and really break through in that area? It's so hard, because I don't pretend to know what it's like to live in the global south, but I've been there a number of times, and I've spoken with and worked with a number of people. And I think it's actually incumbent, I don't actually think it's incumbent on you in the global south. I think it's incumbent on us in the global north, in countries like Australia or the United States or Europe, to create those spaces to allow young people from the global south to break through. So one thing that we try to do at Oak Tree is, through our partners, through our Youth Solidarity Fund, we've got 5 different partners, is we try to create spaces for them to be able to contact us so that we can then advocate and create those spaces on our own social media platforms to amplify and elevate those voices. So I think one of the big things is for me to take it away and do a lot of work with youth organisations in Australia to make that way for young people. But in the absence of that, where that's not, so try and build partnerships with those organisations that have a broader reach, if you can, particularly in the global north, so that where that voice really needs to be heard and your power needs to be centred. Failing that, do it with each other. One of the best things we have is each other as resources. And the more that we amplify each other's voices, the more that we talk, the more that we make noise, the harder it is for people to ignore us. I understand there are barriers. I don't have a silver bullet, but I hope that's at least given some food for thought. I'm sure I could learn a lot from you as well on areas where we can really center voices, young people's voices from the global south.
Okay. Are you satisfied now?
Okay. May I just one question more?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Mr. Nathan, I'm just like wondering to know about from that statement that you given just now, what is the core problem that made this situation is happening right now?
Oh, that's a great one. I think there are a number of reasons. I think there's one key one that I can talk about, and I think the media is a really big barrier for us hearing problems in the global south. Often our news in Australia, despite being so close to a country like Indonesia or in the Pacific, our media is dominated by news from other English-speaking countries and Western countries, such as the United States. Half of our news is news from the United States, and often I couldn't tell you the reasons particularly why, but with our media focusing so heavily on those regions, there's not as much space. People in a country like Australia don't hear as much about what's happening in a place like, say, Indonesia, because our media just doesn't focus on it. I think as young people, we might be a bit luckier, particularly young people who go to university, with Australia having such a large number of international students, people from Indonesia, from China, from India, across the world. We get to have higher degrees of interaction with young people and have a bit more of an insight and understanding into what's happening in those places. And often those interactions cause a lot of change or people to then reflect. Unfortunately, I think until we in the global north start demanding of our media institutions and our politicians and our communities to focus much more on the world around us, we're not going to see that reflected more. So that's why it's up to grassroots activists and young people and those interpersonal connections to really amplify those voices, because they're not cutting through in the mass media space. That's one reason why I think that's the case.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Nathan. That's the great one for me.
Great.
Okay, thank you. And we are moving forward to the next questions by, I don't know how to pronounce the name, Kusi, am I pronounce it right? Kusi Mohammed. Can you please unmute your mic and ask the questions?
Yeah, Hussein Muhammad Tahir. Actually, I want to just say my suggestion. As you mentioned, like the problem of pollution, have like, you think for people or for age under 13. So I want to say, like, for example, right now we know like COVID-19. So because of how to say, like, because of pollution of the masker, people use masker. So many, like, I'm studying micro, many like ocean, river became polluted by masker. So I want to just say, like, do you think is like belong to people or the age around this, or this is responsibility is dominant, belong for all people, like, yeah. And what should we do? We also like using social media, Facebook, Twitter, and so, yeah, because sometimes I think the problem is dominant, not include specific how to say, age of people. So yeah, that's my, I just want your opinion. Thank you so much. Yep.
Sure. Thanks, Kusi. That's a really good question. And I think what you highlight is a really interesting point. Something like plastic pollution, particularly from masks.
Yeah.
That's not something that's related to one age group or another. And to be quite honest, a lot of the issues that are facing us across the world, from climate change to lack of access to education or technology, that's not just a young person problem. So you're really right. And I think what really gets to is what role do young people have there? So the opportunity to make big changes there. So, for example, to pass a law saying you can't use a plastic mask, you need to use a disposable mask. That's largely in the hands of people who make laws, right? And young people are underrepresented in those areas. So we know that that's not a space that we can act. But what we can do is we can do our own behavior. So we can use a cloth mask, for example. We can then encourage others to do that. We can encourage our parents to do that. We can then encourage our grandparents and et cetera, and try and, at least in our own little corner, that's our family, whether that's our town, our village, our suburb, our community, our apartment building, and try and do that. You can put up signs letting people know about the impact of this. That local change just through conversations is helpful. There was a study that I read, and I think it goes right to the heart of your question. And it's about climate change, but this applies to many things. Young women are the key to changing the world. And here's the reason why. There was a study done, and the number one reason why men changed their minds on climate change being a real problem was when their teenage daughters told them how much they cared about it. And that was the number one thing that changed men's minds on climate change and to make positive action to combat climate change. And what I will say is, don't underestimate the power of your voice as young people, particularly young women, and the impact you can have on those people who are traditionally in power that can make those really big changes. I don't know if it's the answer.
But
I think it's a place to start.
I got you. Thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
And then we're moving on to the next questions. There is Iqbal here. Hello, Iqbal. Can you please open your mic and ask the questions?
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. All right. So thank you for the opportunity. And thank you for Mr. Nathan as well for the great presentation. I actually have seen OCHE before, I think on my Instagram, like they're like sponsored, or I don't know, Instagram sponsor, and I saw this organization that helps young people to get their community to make it into reality. So one question that I want to ask, I usually have projects and like ideas with my friends that we want to build an organization to fix issues in our community. But sometimes we wondering like, what do you think, like what are the best strategies of building an organization that you usually encounter with which makes an organization doesn't sound convincing enough and trustworthy, I guess, like when you've seen young people probably applying to get backup from your organization. And what do you think, what are the best strategies that they usually make or those kind of things? And the next question is like how to make an organization sound more favorable and to convince the partnership even more. Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, Iqbal, thank you so much. It was a bit echoey, so I think I heard you. What I think you were asking was, what if you're starting a youth-led organization or you're in one, what are those key strategies that you can use to make it successful? And the second one is, how can you make those organizations position really well for support funding? Did that go to the heart of your question?
Yeah, more like, do you think like, is there any mistakes that usually young people make when they want to start an organization? Is there any? Yeah.
Okay, what mistakes? Okay, the biggest mistake that I see is we get really, really excited about a really big idea and just don't plan enough to try and get to that end. So what might happen is people might come together over a really big idea. They might want to do leadership classes for 1,000 young people, for example, right? And then without doing much planning, just kind of start. They bring lots of people on board. So, right, we're going to do A, B, C, D. And often there might not be a lot of coordination in that. There may not be the internal structures or processes or communication channels. There might be a number of different visions within that of what can happen. So some people might, using the leadership classes example, one person might want to do a dedicated leadership program for young men and someone for young girls. Some other people might want to do it together, for an example. And without having a really clear set of goals and targets, it can often just fizzle out, or it can just kind of die a really slow death because there wasn't that clarity to start with in terms of goals. So what I would say to any young people starting an organization or doing an initiative, doesn't have to be in an organization, be really clear on the goal that you're trying to achieve and invest in getting other people to back that goal. Someone once explained it really well to me. And they said, you might say to someone, I want to head north. And I live in, the south of Australia. And for some people, that might be ending up in Darwin. For some people, it might be ending up in Brisbane. What you need to say is, we want to head to the central business district of Darwin to the post office there. This is a really bad example, but then everyone knows the path that you can go, and then everyone is much more on board and there's a common vision. That's what I would suggest. And if I understood the second part of the question properly, really understanding what the impact is really appealing to other partners. If people can really clearly identify what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve, that's a really appealing way to it's a really appealing proposition to partner and support. I hope I helped answer that for you, Iqbal.
That answered my question. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Iqbal, for your questions. And now we will move on to the next questions. From Sanwar Razak in the chat box. He asked about, as a student, what can he do for the community?
Oh, wow. I would say, to the person who asked that, I would say, firstly, you would probably know best what the challenges are in your community and what you can do. So I'm not going to pretend to know what that might be, but tangibly, one of the things I would do is go and talk to people, try and get as many different perspectives as possible about what's happening in your community, whether it's your school, whether it's your university, and say, what are you struggling with, or what's something that we can improve? And the more people you talk to, the clearer picture you're going to get on what action you can then take. And then find people who share a same passion as you. It might be people needing greater homework assistance. It might be people needing better transport. And find people who are like-minded and get a number of people around the table to think of solutions and what you can do, who you can talk to. Because when you bring other people on board, it becomes so much easier. But invest in those conversations first to properly understand what the problem is. And then you're going to make a better change in the long term.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nathan, for the answers. For the next questions is from Bintang. He said that he looked up Oak Tree on LinkedIn, but can't really find much. He asked about what is the biggest event or program for youth that Oak Tree has done, or the main project that the Oak Tree has done. Are Oak Tree in the partnership with any other organizations?
Fantastic question. I'll put our website in the chat because our website has a little bit more information. So let me just get that up really quickly. But the largest program that we have is called the Youth Solidarity Fund. And what we do is we give out grants between $5,000 and $15,000 US to different organizations throughout the Asia Pacific region. So we've got 5. And what we say, rather than us having our own criteria for that grant or the type of programming that those young people can do, we ask those organizations, what's the biggest need in your community and what's the project or program that you want to run to help solve that. So they then send in an application, and then we provide funding and ongoing support to those youth-led organizations to build their capacity, but to then enable them to go and make that change in their community. So we had one partner last year in the Youth Solidarity Fund that did leadership classes in Timor-Leste in, I think it was 3 different high schools, which reached about 300 young people. And we were really proud to be able to provide that support and that funding to make that program happen. That's our big program. The second big program that we have, which we're about to launch, so information isn't yet available, but it will be very, very soon, is a global youth rights campaign. So at the moment, there is no international law that guarantees rights for young people and their right to participation. So we're currently building a coalition of youth-led organizations, working with universities and other NGOs to put pressure on the United Nations to pass a law that provides guaranteed rights for young people to a clean and healthy environment, to civic participation. So we don't have as much publicity on that one, but that's the other really big project that we're working on that we're going to hope has a global reach. So that's a bit more information there, but happy to meet with you at another time if you'd like to talk more about Oak Tree and what we do. I just put the link in the chat for everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. And then the next question is from Brian, not me. You have the questions from economic, social, and environmental point of view. How to build the youth to be more inclusive?
Oh, that's such a big question too, Brian. That's a really good one. Okay, so from an economic, social, and environmental perspective, how do you build youth to be inclusive? Okay, I'm actually really stuck on where to start here because it's such a big topic. Okay, from an economic perspective, I think what we know is that the more people that are integrated into the economy, the better everything is. So one thing that happens a lot in Australia with, say, Aboriginal people is they'll often start Aboriginal businesses and employ a lot of other Aboriginal people because they're often overrepresented in unemployment. So I know across the world, social enterprise is really growing as a movement, and it's a lot of the time it's young people that are really driving these social enterprises and these businesses that do good. One thing that you can do to be much more inclusive is to really emphasize on hiring and training young people to give them a leg up, but also to make a positive change going forward. Because we know that when people have access to employment and other opportunities, that the impact for their communities and for their families is really good as well. That's one thing that you can do. In terms of social, and I actually think I can imagine a large number of people here being from Indonesia. I think you've got a leg up on so many other people in the world. Indonesia is such a diverse country. I've been there once. I don't claim to be an expert on Indonesia. There are so many different cultures, languages, religions within Indonesia. And I think so much of what you all do in terms of creating that societal harmony is such a key part. And I think Indonesians can really teach the world a lot in how to be inclusive socially. I know in a country like Australia, where we have young people are much more diverse than beforehand, is we try to work with older generations and talk to them about tolerance and being inclusive, so that the structures that are then created can be much better for young people as they go through things like school. And environmental, it's a really hard one to know where to start because it's so all-encompassing. I think any action that we all take collectively to make sure that our planet is more sustainable, whether that's recycling, whether that's using less electricity, particularly for young people in the Pacific, where their homes are about to be underwater within the next 30 years, is a huge act of solidarity to make sure that they can continue to live without anxiety about what's going to happen to their home. That's a really huge one. I can almost try and write a paper on that one.
Okay. Wait a minute, I try to search for another questions. Okay, so there are some that raise their hand, maybe from Franz Gultom. Can you please unmute your mic?
Okay, good evening, everybody. Great to see you here. So, actually, I'm going to ask about this. First, generally, you need more opportunities to go through and grow to be something else, right? And because we actually know that young people play the vital role in the progress of the development of a nation. So in order to be heard by the government and able to create a strong and competitive collaboration with the government and also all the stakeholders and also the policymakers, what are the things that you need to own as a core value? And what is the important thing that the government should be there for the youth? I mean, can you please explain a brief about it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Franz. In terms of the value that young people need to hold in this area, I think it's determination. Determination is really important because change doesn't happen overnight. And I think we can lead to burnout if we go really, really hard, really, really quickly. I think what we've got to understand is that a lot of these challenges that we're all facing, especially in the wake of the pandemic, these are long-term challenges that aren't going to change overnight. And I think if we are determined to see change understanding that there is going to be failure along the way, not seeing that as a way to defeat us, but as something that makes us even more determined to continue to advocate and make change. That's going to be super important. So I'd say determination. But as a kind of secondary value among that, I would say that solidarity is a really important value. We can't do this alone. We have to do all of this together, whether it's just you and a few friends wanting to make a small change in your local area, whether it's young people across the world trying to make change to international law. If we help share the burden and support one another to continue to be determined, we're going to get there in the end. So I would say the first one would be determination, supplemented by solidarity. Now, friends, I think there was a second part to your question that I forget. Are you able to repeat that for me, please?
So the second questions, what are the things that, what is the important thing that the government that the government should be there for the youth?
Sure. I think the fundamental one across the world is making sure that every young person has a chance at having an education. That unlocks the largest amount of opportunity for all young people. And that's the number one thing that every government should be ensuring, that every young person has access to a quality education.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Franz, for your questions. And then, we are moving on to the next questions from Atif. Can you open your mic?
Hello. So first of all, I would like to say thank you. And my question is that I am from Pakistan, and here almost 30 to 40% are youth. But the problem that I observed around me, that we have a financial uncertainty, so that the young generation is too much under pressure to have a financial stability. So they don't just bother by the issue, or don't want to be a don't bother by the issues around them, and they want to be active to participate or active in changing the community or helping the community. So in this regard, how can the government can help them, or they can help themselves, like, how can they get the funding to start as such initiative to transform the community? And my second question is that what do you think that the media, the social media, is impacting our youth, that because we are overly consuming, that we don't bother by the social or economic challenges are around, because we consume it over all the time. And so is it affecting negatively on the youth? So this is my question. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, Atif. I'll try and answer these ones quickly. The first one around the circumstance of Pakistan, I know a little bit, I don't know a lot. But one thing, especially with young people wanting to organize and get that support, especially when the economy isn't doing very well, there are large NGOs that operate in Pakistan. I'm sure you would know, be much more aware of them. If you can get a group of organized young people and try and have meetings with these NGOs or other similar civil society organizations to try and provide support, that's probably one of the best places I would recommend you going to outside of government. It's a really hard one to know how to advise, but try to meet with some NGOs to see if you can get some support through them. The second part about social media, it has a huge impact on all of us. And one of the things we know is that algorithms put us into our bubbles. So one thing I would encourage all of us to do is go to a news source, go and try to follow someone that you disagree with, and try not to judge that source. Try to understand what they're saying and where they're coming from. Have a look at what some old people are saying about young people, just to understand, not to get enraged. If you read a newspaper from a particular political party or persuasion, try and read a newspaper article on the same thing from another one, and take part of that power back into your own hands about how social media influences your decisions, so that you can be more empathetic to understand what's happening around the world.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for Atif. And this, because Atif is the last question and our time is already tight, I will express my gratitude to Mr. Nathan as our last speaker for today's. And I believe that wraps out our question and answer session. Thank you very much, everyone who has questions. And thank you very much to Mr. Nathan for answering the questions. Now, for the next 1 to 2 minutes, I would like you guys to open your camera and we will begin the documentation session and we will share the attendance list. For Miss Chelsea, the stage is yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Brian, for guiding the webinar session. And thank you very much for all the honorable speakers who already gave us very insightful materials. I'm pretty sure that all participants here acquired a lot of knowledge, even got inspired by the powerful explanation that given by all marvelous speakers. So before we end our today's event, I would like to invite all participants and honorable speakers to join in the documentation session. So please turn on your camera and give your base pose. So this consists by 6 slides. And now I'll go with the first slide. Okay, IT. Hi, Kal, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and I will count down in 3, 2, 1. Give your best pose. Okay, now we're moving to the second one. Okay, in 3, 2, 1, cheese. All right, and now we're going to the third one. In 3, 2, 1. All right, okay, and now we're moving to the fourth. Is there slides?
This is the last one.
Okay, the last one. Okay, in 3, 2, 1, give your best pose. All right, so before we end our today's event, I would like to kindly inform you that virtual exhibition of pre-event is still ongoing. So please make sure that you are checking out our most incredible virtual exhibition before it comes to an end. And now we're getting to the closer for the first day of the event. So thank you so much, everyone, for the participation and all the excitement. Hopefully from this first day of the event, you may get an insightful discussion and you may get a delightful experience. This event would not be successful without the help of our sponsors, Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Tourism Academy, Mentoring, Advocat, Ethical Traveler, International FES, Kahmi Turkey, Octree, On Academy, Solution, and Society of Renewable Energy Women. There's a lot of interesting session comes ahead, so keep maintain your spirit and curiosity because we will see you in tomorrow. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day. See ya. See you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Do not forget to fill the attendance list and the chat box, guys.
Yeah, don't forget just to fill the attendance list. Thank you so much, everyone.